Well, hey there, partners. Welcome back to PewTube. Today I want to talk a little bit about some single action guns. Don't actually have a whole lot of time this week, but I wanted to check in real quick. Had an interesting thing happen recently. Zoom in here a little bit. There we go. I had my first Skype consultation this last week, which was kind of fun. Got to see some faces I hadn't seen for a while, at least on a little video on a screen. Some folks I knew from grad school and other workshops. But they had some questions about some single action blank guns that they had rented from another acquaintance of mine, different rental house, not mine, and just wanted to talk to somebody about use and checking them out and safety and all that stuff. So it was interesting. I don't know. We'll see if this becomes a thing. Skype consultations, FaceTime consultations. I'm certainly open to it. There are some things that are a little harder to do that way, but because I had the same kind of things in my shop here, in my basement, that they have rented there, I was able to kind of walk them through stuff, troubleshoot some things for them. Turns out they did have a couple of props with problems that they were able to find out about now before the show's about to open, so that's good. They had rented an extra, which is always an awesome idea, so that meant that they could pull out the one that was having issues. I'm guessing it was timing issues. The dimple on the primer seemed to be a little bit off to the side, so I'm guessing the cylinder just wasn't locking up in quite the right place to set off the blanks, because the blanks would work fine in a different prop. Anyway, this is not about them, but I figured while I had some stuff out and accessible, I'd talk a little bit about some of these Colt single action, 45 Peacemaker type replicas. Now there's two main types available to us here. One made by Denix and one made by Kimar, although they tend to go by different names. So the Denix one goes with it says Ranger on one side and sort of a BBM in the circle. On the other side here, zoom in a little bit, so you can see the markings on these, so you know what you've got. And then the Kimar one, they have this single action thing on the barrel, and markings here, and this little medallion on the grip. It may or may not always have, it doesn't always have this made by Kimar thing right there. And these are both available in a variety of finishes. You can get them in black or in this kind of silvery. You can get them with different grips. So you can't necessarily count on that as a way of knowing which type you've got. Now they look very similar, they work very similar, but I will say if you ever get a choice, they're also available sometimes in 22 or 38, but if you ever get a choice, I would go for the Kimar over the Bruni any day, and here's why. Especially when you're wanting to preset a certain number of rounds. The issue with the Brunis is that this cylinder doesn't lock up at all when it's not cocked. Now again, these are single action revolvers, which means that pulling the trigger does nothing unless the hammer is cocked. Now they should all lock up if the hammer is cocked back, so that it'll still line up with a round and vent where it's supposed to and all that. But the real ones and the Kimar ones will also lock up when it's not cocked at all. And this is good because if you want to have an empty round under the hammer, this way you know that that empty cylinder chamber is going to stay under the hammer and not rotate through and then not be lined up where you want it. Or if you just want to line up 2 or 3 shots and have the others empty, with this I can do that and have a pretty good chance that it's going to end up where I want it. With one of these, who the heck knows? It might be coming in and out of the holster, it might turn a little bit. I might have had it set up perfectly, but the actor pulls it up and it does a little something like that as they draw it, and now it's who knows where it's lined up. Again, these are revolvers, so as you cock it, the cylinder is going to rotate. Now, to load these, we've got a little loading gate on the side, right? And this thing just rotates one direction. But since you have to cock it first, if you only want to load a couple of rounds, you got to load them one at a time here. And on the Kimar, you have to do it to half cock, which is what you'd like with the real one as well. So when it's at half cock, this can rotate freely. You can load, you can unload, use a little ejector rod, whatever. But then you can't decock from half cock. You got to cock it all the way, which rotates the cylinder some more, and then decock it, hand it to your actor, they do whatever they're going to do, then they pull it out and then they cock it. So it's actually going to rotate 2 full times usually between when you load it backstage and when the actor is going to fire it. So you've got to have pretty good control and knowledge of how to line those up if you don't want to have them all full. And in general, I like to at least keep an empty one underneath the hammer so that if it is dropped somehow on that hammer, it's not going to accidentally set off a round somehow. So that element of control is why I tend to prefer the Kimars over the Brunis on these single action revolvers. Otherwise, they function pretty much the same. The vent is also a little bit, I don't know about better controlled, but it's in a more durable manner on these. There's a little wedge just forward of the cylinder. I don't know if you can see it there, but a little triangular wedge that'll split the vent, the sparks and the fumes and stuff out to the sides here, in a way that sends it off to the sides of the barrel, and a little bit of a bigger gap. On this one, it's a little bit of a, yeah, the gap's only about half the size, but there's also zero wedge, which means it just hits a flat wall at the front of the barrel there, and it just hits that wall and just sprays off to the side. Now, in terms of direction, I don't think it makes too big a difference, but what I have found is that with some of the other revolvers, that makes a difference in the durability of the prop. Because now, instead of being redirected, now it just smacks against a hard wall and starts to eventually chip away at it. And it's really hard to keep track of what's in there, because this is not something you can see unless you take the whole cylinder out, unscrew this part, pop that out and look at it. So just in terms of maintenance, and then with that safety of making sure that your prop isn't wearing out and starting to send little bits of metal flying every time you fire it. So, you know, I have some of these. They're useful for workshops, if nothing else, to be able to say, hey, this is something you need to, look at that, something you need to be aware of and watch out for. But when I can, I prefer to send these out to do most of my firing on sets, because I trust them a little bit more. Other thing that came up, let's see, these little screws here, the little ejector rods. Not everybody knows what those are for ejecting the spent rounds or assisting those out. What else? I guess the other thing would just be on these holsters. Sometimes when you get these, they don't have the, zoom back out a little bit. Sometimes they don't have these tie downs on the leg anymore, or they've been lost. It makes a big difference in being able to draw it, because if it sticks at all and that follows with you, and it just kind of comes up this way, and it just jams up. These also flop around a whole lot. So I really do suggest, if it doesn't have it, just punch some holes with a leather punch, get a shoelace or something, tie this thing on, right? So that it's attached to the leg, it's not going to go anywhere, and it holds that end down while you draw to make sure that that's not going to flop up, right? Especially if you have anything where they've got to do a quick draw that's going to look at all slick. If that pops up, all of a sudden your actor's going to look like an idiot instead of looking like a cowboy. And then sometimes you also have this little loop here, and this is to go over the hammer. And then it can be cinched down. And that's just a tension thing. You could tie it off. But this is just, you know, if you have a bunch of physical action, or maybe an actor who never actually draws it, or you're riding on horseback or something like that, and you really don't want one of these flopping out and getting lost, just putting this little loop over the hammer can help keep it from getting, there we go, can help keep it from falling out. So now we got pretty good retention there. Now, if I really yanked as hard as I could, it probably would just pull one of those laces out. So, you know, life and death, real cowboy needing this for self-defense or something, yeah, I probably could draw it. But for me, I want it loose enough that I can pop that out and then draw when I want to. And if I need to, flop it back over in case I'm doing any kind of other action here where I've, you know, got to do a roll or a somersault or a fall or something. I don't want that flopping out and getting lost. And of course, these any dummy rounds you might have in these belts will occasionally go rolling as well, so you probably want to fix those in, make sure they're not going anywhere. So that's all I can think of right now, but so that's kind of the quick and dirty version for free of what I gave away elsewhere. Now, we went into more specifics of doing paper tests and safety distances, as well as some of the specific issues they were having on those props of a couple things that were breaking. Loading, unloading, volume, quarter load, half load, full load, all that good stuff. So yeah, I'm totally open to doing some more of these sort of Skype or FaceTime interviews, should that be of interest to anybody, if that's helpful, because I can't get everywhere. And sometimes the biggest barrier is just being able to bring somebody in. Travel is expensive. Lodging can be expensive, although I'm happy to couch surf. So that's it for today. Stay safe, look good, and always subscribe, email, comment, let me know what you're thinking about. If you have any questions, I'll do my best. It's a little bit of a busy time right now. I've got a couple shows that are just going into rehearsal, and some other stuff going on here in the Cleveland area, which is good. It's exciting. Not to mention I need to be doing more on this second book that I'm under contract for, but that's another story. So, thank you all for watching, and stay safe. Till next time.